Hey you guys, it's MJ from Ultra Love. I'm again in my car. I'm parked up somewhere. I'm literally I've got 15 minutes to queue. That's not a great expression, is it? I've got 15 minutes to flow on by, and I figure I might as well go live on YouTube. There's various different practical reasons why I'm waiting 15 minutes in said parking zone. And obviously that's why I'm inspired to share about living in the flow. Living in the flow is step 7 from the Fearless Life Guide, the book that I wrote. Based on my 15, 16, 17 year spiritual awakening and transformational journey, which had a lot to do with just like getting to a place where I'm like actually happy in myself and happy in my body, because we live in the body first and then we're in this world. In essence, you know, that's the physical vessel is like a very direct experience that we have. And so being connected to it is ultimately what we're kind of flowing with. We're flowing in a emergence with the external reality in relationship to our beingness, our sense of aliveness in our bodies. And living in the flow is always a fantastic topic. And when I first published the Fearless Life Guide, I launched and I got about, I think, 12 people sat the course. Like they read the material and sat the material, and I was doing the kind of Fearless Life Tribe stuff a lot more diligently, like every day. And I remember like like she was a client and like a friend, and then by the time she got to step 7 is when she was just like, oh my god, like this is the shit, like this is what life's about, kind of thing. And this person in particular, like, it was amazing actually, because it was real proof of like the fearlessness and the purity of where that book came from. Because when we're really ready to take those leaps, you know, everything lines up for us. And it was just the kind of way it was delivered or whatever that really allowed her, like, yeah, I'm gonna just go be free. And it's really amazing to watch some of the earliest like tribe members just totally living their bliss and living their freedom, and like they're never unsocial anymore, which is why the Fearless Life Tribe's always transforming as well. But step 7 is when she's just like, yeah, whew, like living in the flow, right? It is so kind of radical when we're coming from that systematized way of being, when we're coming from that. Hey Elsie, how are you? Hi. Thank you. So yeah, for me it took years ultimately to really get a sense of like the flow state of being, because it really, I would say, is a cyclical process of unraveling our densities, unraveling that kind of systematic programming, let alone our ancestry and then our parentage. Hey Sergio, our parenting, right? So like how we modeled, how we learned from like our mom and dad figures or lack thereof, and then like our siblings, and then our broader social environment, and then, you know, systematic imprinting to me is very much to do with mainstream media and our education system. So how we get programmed, what we learn about, you know, like basically just what we're taught to believe the world is. And so we then, it's like that purity of like, just as a child, if you remember, you just like are alive, you just inhabit your form, you're flowing, you're just like moving through space. Hey Nestor. And then most of us have like, even regardless of like the circumstance, like regardless what it looks like, most of us have like early trauma just from like being told to sit down, just from being told to like stop imagining, just by learning about the human history, as it were, of like war and violence. That for like a pure innocent child is traumatic. And so we start to kind of shut down from a pretty early age. Most of us go to mainstream education around like 4 or 5, and like literally like we go from sitting down and playing in kindergarten, sitting down on the ground cross-legged, right, and like moving and playing in recess, to like more and more like sit down, shut up, do what you're told, like, pooh. And so that program, for someone like me, having those awakenings and then like trying to fit in, it was like, and this is like a lot of people's story about like, or transformational story, is like trying to fit in that system every time damn near killed me. Whether it was like drug and alcohol abuse, whether it was like suicide, whether it was some psychological, like mental, like depression or anorexia, like something, like just trying to fit into the world that it was telling me to be, was like totally messing with me. Until, again, things started to align. Obviously, the yoga, like a real earnest commitment and discipline to yoga practice, because I knew intuitively like a spiritual practice is what I needed to reclaim my star power, as I call it in the book, right? Like reclaim the essence that I know I am, that like I do remember, but all that kind of imprinting closed me down. It disconnected me. It made me worry about what other people were thinking. It made me think I was wrong and bad and shameful and guilty and sinful and blah, 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 blah. I grew up Catholic as well, so you get extra guilt and shame in there. And then through miraculous divine intervention, like a lot of us in this Great Awakening have found ourselves on these healing journeys, again, through yoga, meditation, mindfulness. Essentially, it's so tangibly similar for all of us, but to me it goes right down to the root of like, we have to find a way back to ourselves. We have to find a way back home. And this is, to me, what like living in the flow is. It's home. And it's only when I start worrying about how I'm gonna do something, or I start worrying about like whatever our default setting from the program makes us contracted, makes us stressed, makes us worried about like belonging, worrying about having enough, worrying about being too big or too small, whatever kind of triggers our vessel, our body, into being like contracted or like is showing us something about our energetic imprinting, right? And that's why we tag team this energy work with such profound practices like meditation and yoga, because it helps to stabilize and ground our energy into that centeredness, so that even when we get triggered and the emotional field starts to like, or we have all these really intense emotions coming up, and it's just like, what is actually happening to me right now? That we are able to actually like sit with that and just be with that monumental wave of energy, or a despairing, weird, ugly energy, or a really alien, frightening energy. Whatever energies come up in our bodies, it's more than likely like an imprint. It's not necessarily like the neutral space of the void, you know, like that meditative true calm space, I would say, is much more like the middle of the yin, or what's that, infinity. Think about balance as this continuum, right? And that it's always going to be ebbing and flowing in a polarity of frequency, right? Because otherwise we wouldn't see anything, or we wouldn't be alive in these sort of fractalized aspects of consciousness, right? So we're all, it's so paradoxical and mind-blowing that you can see sometimes I just miss the actual like words, because it's everything and nothing. We are the eye of the storm and the storm itself. We're the seed of creation and the soil, and then and the actual birthing of the flower as well. We are actually the full container, like, of the entire cosmos. However, when our mental capacity is like super focused on like the world that we were taught about, and we have to fit into the world, and we have to be important, and we have to be busy, the mind, literally, again, I've said it before, but I had a spiritual teacher who was like, the mind disconnected from its host, or disconnected from the heart. Yeah, the mind disconnected from the heart will destroy its host. And you can kind of see that craziness in the matrix, in the disconnected world, that you're like, you know, you can only rape and pillage and sort of destroy your home before you destroy yourself, right? So what we're doing to essentially survive is evolving. We're evolving our connectedness. We're evolving our consciousness, which really just means, instead of just letting your mind like dictate crazily everything, which is most of us, when we're just in the system, are just like trying to fit in, quite afraid, like scared of who we are, not sure what we're feeling, like just like trying to wear the right clothes and do the right things and kind of just mindlessly. And then that usually creates suffering patterns which wake us up and set us on some kind of expansive, healing, grounding journey. And then we end up slowly but surely living in the flow of our own heart's frequency. So that's like the signature of our own divinity. And again, it's home. It feels like home. So the more you spend time feeling into this like peaceful, like loving, because home is love, you know, like home is where the heart is. These expressions they don't get created for no reason, you know, and there is a maturation process. There is a cycling round, and each of us as beings have cycles within the planetary cycles that are all part of our own expansion and awakening, but we're all one. So as we awaken in our own experience, the totality of all of humanity and all of the universe is also awakening perpetually to its own experience, its own lightness, its own creative potential. It doesn't end. It's only a construct of finite imagination that thinks that things come to an end, right? It's part of that, even that mental construct, that imbalanced mental construct that I think is in search of all of the answers perpetually, you know, seeking an answer. But so long as we're always seeking the answers outside of us, I don't think we actually come to any necessary inner knowing, because we're always looping it outside, right? We're always pretending like that creation or that thing is happening separate outside of us, that there could actually be mastery outside of us, but that's an illusion of our own creation based in separation. It's only when we integrate the fullness of who we are that we can expand beyond it and then direct consciousness and direct thought with a lot more vigilance, diligence, discipline, but also love. That's so much part of where I think this book really was born from, was this inner thing of like so many breaking points in my own life, so many surrender points, so many breakdowns, ultimately, not to scare you guys or anything, but like broke, homeless, on my knees, like crying in the middle of the streets, like sober, just in despair at the pain and the suffering of not just my own, obviously, but like the world in chaos, having these awakenings, seeing through the veils and just being like, what am I doing, you know? And those were the moments that really it would be like penetrating veil after suffering, just having no one and nothing. And so just having this space of like, okay, I'm just going to drop in deep, and I don't want to kill myself, but I'm going to let myself feel. And it would really be in endeavoring this depth of pain within my own energetic field, this depth of suffering and feeling within my own emotional field, and endeavoring to own it to the point that I truly felt in the fullness of my being that if I could take away all the suffering, I will. If I could be a beacon, if I could absolve it all, like I would. And those moments were when you like penetrate into this divine mystery that is all consuming and all healing and all kind of graceful. In that moment of such deep pain and darkness, there's just this like, and literally just, hey, just like the artist of the business of time, and it like enfolds you, and those are the moments where I know that I am the eternal, like that I am one with the eternal source that is allowing me to have this experience, right? And hence, I think early on, why I always had this set point of like, I am always safe and I'm never lost, you know? And these things are these little mantras along my life are always what allowed me to kind of travel freely. You know, as a lone woman, there's more fear, I think, typically for girls around traveling by yourself. And I even was just really weird and would like, go off by myself without a phone or without stuff, and I would kind of end up lost. But I always had that inner mantra, even when there'd be a little bit of like, oh shit, where am I? I literally would just like drop in and be like, I am always safe and I'm never lost. And yeah, I'd always find my way home, you know, or like bump. And like even more extended miraculous is when like random strangers, like guardian angels, walk in these moments of darkness and pain and like throw a hand down, you know, like they reach down and offer you a place to stay or offer you some food or whatever it might be. And then those were also the turning point moments where I knew that like life is a life of benevolence and grace. Like humanity is truly kind and compassionate. Any of us who have ventured to travel know the truth that like the dominant frequency of this planet is actually peaceful. The dominant frequency of this planet is actually love. It's only this weird fragmented matrix mainstream systematized like imprint that makes us be like, oh shit, everyone's frightened, everyone's gonna come at me, and that's just not true. It's like and so living in the flow is literally just like outworking that. Like every time those weird, fearful, scary, resentful, jealousy, anger, blah, 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 anytime those emotions come up, be present. Know that it's not true. Like see how the thought connects to those frequencies. You're usually thinking shitty thoughts, projecting past experiences onto people, making assumptions based on collective agreements that are, again, just kind of shit, right? And then you can sit with that, be like, I see that thought, not useful, and then just sit with the energy. And often if we can just sit with the trigger, that's when we get the emotional healing of a wave or a storm. But sometimes we can just sit and breathe through the trigger and it's no big deal. Sometimes you can just let a trigger flick off you as well. And again, it's all happening in a paradox, which is like the weirdest thing. But it's only weird when we're locked into the 3D reality. When we're locked into that frequency of thought, this stuff is really like, huh? Like, what? Because like the energetic frequency of that being isn't expanded enough to contain this frequency of thought, because this frequency of thought is what's bridging us into like, again, teleportation, telepathy, basically like full ownership of our remote and our infinite intelligence as beings of quantum reality, right? Of beings who understand that energy is actually malleable, that we're the creators of these vessels through an infinite portal of just divine eternity, because this is really all divine. Like divine, not in any kind of dogmatic way, but just life. This is the juice, right? This is the kind of random shit that I would constantly like get up to in my own weird loner head. But like I would just so often be like, what is this? Like, and like people be like, Molly, you're so weird. And I'm like, yeah, but what is life? Like, honestly, do you ever just think and are like, whoa, what am I doing on this planet? Like, we're all just like these random humans, and it's quite laughable, but that we're all like do when there's just this infinite space, and we are multidimensional beings. And who knows? Like the world, the share I did this morning was something around like global change and paradigm shift, and I think it's because I get the collective energy update or intuitive energetic connection is like heavy duty emotions are coming up for people, because like people's worlds are falling apart. The ego, that old paradigm ego across the masses of human consciousness is like crumbling. People are waking up and realizing, oh fuck, like this isn't it. Like I might have all these things lined up, none of that matters once we make the leap into new paradigm, because it's all heart based. There's no more lies, there's no more corruption, there's no more like trying to swindle each other, because we're feeling into like that totality and agreeing. That's next level new paradigm. This is why somehow we all intuitively know it. We've already made the collective agreement. It's already done. We've already awakened in as such. The new paradigm is already here now, and it's been here now for ages. Yay, MJ, living in the flow, unblocked and rolling with the energy waves. Love it. Nice one, John Beanie. Yeah, so there again is when we skip out, and this is like multidimensionality. This is where we realize like we are, and here again, I don't like to go into that stuff too much, because it still is, there's still a bit of an energetic vibrational bridge for us to keep climbing, for us to start anchoring in those wavelengths. And that's okay. I just don't like to get too far ahead of myself, because my energy can feel when it's not maybe as relevant to like as many people as it could potentially be. As far as first, it's just like knowing the heart of who you are, getting really good at living in the flow. Then once you're living in the flow real good, this is where it's like we start to pull in this like Neo like matrix energy of like dropping into the matrix and dropping out. This is why we have the internet as well. We can be a lot more discerning with the energies that we're engaging with and exchanging with, because there's like it's like almost like a barrier, protective barrier around our energies, so we can keep ourselves clear and clean. Because I don't know about you guys, but like when I'm in mass energy fields, it can be like I can like, if I'm like in busy environments or in heavy traffic or like anything like that, I can really feel my nervous system get kind of like buzzed. Hence, sleep whenever I want and hang out in nature whenever I want. Living in the flow. You got to live in the flow to keep vibrating higher. And then that's what the most amazing thing is, guys, about living in the flow is like, in this weird way, it's all timeless. Like, I feel like I'm floating in timelessness. And that I just have like encounters, like now I'm here, like star systems, like I'm in this constellation, and I'm in this constellation, and I'm in this constellation. And yet, so like you're flowing, and life is like more abundant and effortless and like easy. And sometimes I'm like, wow, I just like, sometimes I feel like I just do nothing for hours and hours, and I just chill and rest like all the time, and life is amazing. And like the weird paradox, this is the times we're in, these paradoxical times, it's like I'm more efficient than ever. It's like things get done effortlessly in the flow, and productivity increases, and next level kind of creative juices flow, and yet you're more rested inside all the time. But you're like busy. It's just wild. I do love life, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me and tuning in on this Tuesday. There it is. It usually does come to me. Sometimes like I'll forget what month it is, what day it is, but you know, fortunately the grid is there and you can still pretty much figure out these things whenever you need to. So I hope that was useful to you guys. Maybe a little entertaining. I'll check the comments after. Actually, I'm kind of curious. Whoop, whoop, Tuesday fun. Nice one, John. Nice to see you. All of you guys, actually. Like, super cool. I do, like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I have 15 minutes to spare. Boom. 22 minutes. Easily done having chats with my internet friends. Feel free to comment, share, subscribe if you enjoyed that. I love having these chats with you guys. And don't forget, we do this formally Sunday sessions. This is just me going live intuitively because I share most days. But we have like a formal Sunday sessions catch up, 6 a.m. UK time. And yeah, just tune in whenevs, because this is me. I just do whenevs and share from the heart space, because that's pretty much where I live all the time. Love you guys. Have a glorious day. Do you like my singing?